Hello, I'm Robin, and welcome to Molten Modular. Today I'm looking at a guitar pedal. This is the glorious, gooey Chroma Console from Hologram. It's the sort of thing I could play with all day. Every time I sit down with it, I find new levels of joyous satisfaction in terms of making everything just sound like it's losing it. Just round the edges, just starting to fall off, just starting to wobble. It's like you've put on a slightly warped record, or you've dug out some cassettes from the back of the cupboard and put those on. It has this vintage vibe which is very, very pleasing, very immediate. It's something about it that warms your soul. You sit down with it and go, wow, this is just lovely. So, but why is it lovely? What is it about it that is so sumptuous? It's a good question, because Hologram produced some extraordinary pedals and bits and pieces and effects and that kind of thing. They sent me a microcosm some time ago, and I have never worked it out. I just don't. I can't seem to grasp it. Every now and again, I'm playing with it, and these moments of absolute gorgeousness come out, and you go, oh wow, and then you leave it set like that for as long as you possibly can. But then next time you pick it up and accidentally move something, you go, darn it, I just don't know what it was that sounded nice, and I don't know how to get it back. And you've got random presses of things and turns of knobs to get through. Now, there are plenty of people out there who have mastered the microcosm and know all about it and understand how it works. That's not me. So, however, I knew there was wonderment inside it because I glimpsed it every now and again. So when I saw the Chroma Console come along from Hologram, I thought maybe this is the one. I mean, they launched it with a wonderful video that was just full of this fuzz, of this saturation, of this goo and this treacle that you could move through. And I thought, wow, that just sounds absolutely lovely. But check out that interface. Look at it. It looks straightforward. If you look at the microcosm, this fella here, you spend most of your time going, what? What is this? Look at all, wow, I'm going through, oh my goodness, what does that do? I don't even know what, is it mosaic that I want? Or is it interrupt? I don't know, is it a tunnel? I don't know. Suffice to say, this defeated me. I mean, I didn't like put in serious hours of work. I just wanted to sit and play. And this, I could not. I could not do that with that. It would just end up frustrating me. So, it's with that level of kind of bias and disappointment that I come to the Chroma Console. But the good news is that the Chroma Console just unfolds like a tulip, like a rose, and goes, here you go. Simplicity. Simplicity in interface, simplicity in visualization, in indication of what's going on, and gorgeousness in sound. It's like they heard all of my moaning and whinging about the microcosm and built it into this. So if that's not enough to make you excited about this pedal, then I don't know, maybe I'm going to need to carry on making this video and show you why it's so good. Now, it has its limitations. It's not for everyone, because nothing ever is. But in its little world, in its little environment, it has such great taste. It has such great sound and nuance and feel and vibe that it's just one of the nicest pedals I've ever had. Now, I'm not a serious guitarist. I mean, I've been a guitarist for, 40 years? So I can play a couple of tunes, but I'm not a guitar nerd. So, I don't really... I play guitar and I enjoy that, and I've got an amp and a guitar and a couple of pedals, and that's what I do. So I'm by no means a virtuoso guitar head who's going to tell you exactly everything that this is awesome and how it compares to 1,000 other pedals that I've never ever played. No. However, I will plug some guitar into this because, as I say, I play guitar. Now, I have used this in a number of different scenarios. I've used it with my modular live at the Rack Records gig. I've used it with my guitar live. And every time it flipping delivers just extraordinary stuff. Because of its simple, gorgeous sound, really. But it's more than that, because although I was able to get wonderful sound out of the microcosm, its interface defeated me. And that is always going to be a large part of any interaction with any machine. It has to be a combination of, does it sound awesome? Is it easy to use? Can you actually use it without pulling your own teeth out? Yes, with the Chroma Console. So what is it? I mean, I'm already almost 10 minutes into this video. I haven't told you what it is yet. So Chroma Console, it's a multi-effector. That's what they call it. What does that mean? It's just a multi-effects, right? It's got 4 different colours, if you like, 4 different vibes within it, which all combine up to create this gooey mess of saturated, vintage-esque, wobble, warp, delay, reverb, distance, time, interface, space, portholes, that kind of thing. So I think what I'll do is I'll just use the simplicity of a little bit of modular and run that through, and hopefully that will give you an idea of what's possible and also why I like it. So I'll put stuff through it and I'll play with it and I'll talk about it. And we'll go from there, yeah? I also better show you it. Look, here it is. Well, first of all, why don't I say it's just a delicious looking box. It has that slight sort of vintage medical white kind of thing to the pedal colour itself, which I'm not a massive fan of. But then all the other colours that get introduced to this are just great. It's fun, it's lively. You can kind of see what it is that you're supposed to do. And that's no bad thing. Stereo in and out on the back, MIDI in and out. I've not got into any of the MIDI stuff at all, not even a tiny bit. I've just played with the sounds. There's also an expression pedal input if you want to control something with a bit of a whammy type thing. It's a nice shape. Using my boots on this has been completely fine. I'm not clashing with anything. I can see what's going on. The light indications, brilliant, but I'm going to show you all that as we go along. Also, I should point out that there's writing on the front, and actually all of it is useful, because you can't always hold absolutely every aspect of the manual and every combination of things you need to use within your head. And so these little prompts, you go, oh right, yeah, I can do that, and then you're into that mode and you're off. Now, you know how I don't like modes, particularly I'm not a deep level diving kind of person, or rather I can do that, I just don't love that. But there is a little bit in here, but not enough to make you angry. So I've got this plugged into my modular here. I'm using the DPW guitar effects loop module right here, which you can't see. I'll bring up a picture of it or something. So I'm going into that, through this, then back out in stereo into here, and I've just got this loop going through from Bavaco VCO and filter arrangement, or I can glide across to the algo, which isn't remotely tuned at the moment. I keep checking for a loose connection, but of course it's actually part of the effect, is that brokenness. Bit more in tune. Right, so let me bring you in. We're going to have a look. I'll go through all the bits, put a bit of sound through it, and then try some other things as well. That's the plan. We'll go for that. Right. So hopefully you can see that overhead without too much bother. Here is the Chroma Console. Here it is. Beautiful lights here. A couple of foot switch type buttons. Let me take you through what we're looking at. So you've got these four pedals, really, 4 chunks, for vibes. You've got this one, which is character. That essentially throws in distortion or drive, overdrive, that kind of thing. You've got movement, which is your modulation effects, your wobble, your phaser, your tremolo, that kind of thing. Here, diffusion, this is delays and reverbs. And then this one here, just this single knob, not two knobs on this one, is texture. Now, texture is how much vintage crap you want it to sound like. So let me take you quickly through a bit of each. Now, to turn them on and off, you kind of hold the buttons. Now, there's a lot of desktop action with this. You couldn't do that with your feet when it's on the floor. And I'm going to show you that there are ways of using it and changing effects while it's on the floor or even within your Eurorack. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. It's quite interesting. It has an entire preset system within here, which is not really usable in a live situation. I mean, unless you have gaps, but I'll show you a bit of that later on. But the immediate limitation perhaps that you could just put forward with this is that you can't turn these on and off with your feet. It's just not possible. So it's not a multi-effects unit in that you've got 4 separate effects that you can use independently. You can, of course, use them independently. It's just you can't swap between them independently on the fly, in real time, in performance, quite that easily. Having it on the desktop gives you a little bit more room to do that because you can get to these little buttons with your fingers. So hopefully, as I'm stumbling through this rambling review, you will be able to see what I mean about how these different bits work. So if you hold the button, it turns it off. Easy. So hold it to turn it on. There we go. So which one is it? Well, the color represents which effect you're chosen, and you step through them one at a time. You can't choose one sort of willy-nilly. You have to cycle through them, and one of those is off. The only thing you can do, as I showed you before, is I can hold it just to turn it off, and then it comes back on to where it was. Otherwise, you have to step through. Is that great? No, it's not great, but it's what you've got. I mean, I think what you'll find that what this is throwing at us is that you decide on your effects and then you use and play with them rather than shifting between different setups all the time. That's probably what we're going for, I think. So let's have a look at some of this drive stuff. Now, this may sound better. In fact, I know for a fact it will sound better probably with guitar, but we'll get to that. But for the moment, let's go for our simple bass line, or whatever you call that. Now, Hologram suggests that you use the mix all the way up, that you fully mix through this, because you've then got individual effect amounts on these 4 knobs here. That's actually all they do. That's their only thing, I think. Oh, well, you can also turn the effect volume up and down, which is that the same thing? Not entirely. Anyway, so if I turn on drive, for instance, then I can turn up the amount, and you can hear that. I can bypass with that, and you see that it dulls and this light turns off, just to give you some idea. You've also got this tilt control here, which is like a sort of filter EQ, makes it brighter, makes it darker. It's really nice, it's really easy, it sounds good. In any situation. The sweetened one has more of a compression vibe to it. Fuzz. Howl. So, yeah, similar. We know what we mean by these sorts of things. And then swell. Nobody knows how to use swell. It's the mysterious one on the end of the chain where you go, what? Yeah, yeah. Right, what swell is, apparently, it's much more useful on guitar. It's something which will try to give you like that reverse input, but you need to give it strong, choppy type sounds. I'll demonstrate it on guitar at some point in order to use that effectively. I'm not using a VCA in here, I'm not enveloping it at all, I'm just playing with a filter, so I'm not giving it the right information it needs in order to create those fade-ins. Could I do that? Probably. Am I going to right now? Nah. No, I don't think so. Let's move on. So the next thing we've got is movement. Let's go through to the first one, which is a doubler. So you're kind of detuning with that top knob. Vibrato. Now I use this quite a lot. Quite like this. That's vibrato. Phaser. Tremolo. Then pitch, which essentially pitches up to the right, pitches down to the left. And you can mix between the two. It's just behind. I think that's probably common with a pitch shifter. Okay, good, lovely. Simple, nice. Something which is underpinning all of the Chroma Console's engine and love and lust for life is drift. Drift and saturation, I would say. No, drift, saturation and vintageness. No, drift, saturation, vintageness and just a heart full of overwhelming joy. So what I'm talking about is that there's a secondary function, right? A secondary function called drift. Now everything has a secondary function, but we're not going to worry about all of that. It's drift which is most important. Because you will find in every sound, in every effect, there's a certain amount of crappiness going on. You know, deliberate circuit designed emulations of things just starting to fade and fall over. And the drift control really emphasizes that. Why don't we put in some different sounds? Alright, here we go. So for instance, if I go to the doubler, I can go into secondary thing, which is a pair of buttons here. I have to press these two, and that'll give me the secondary control, which is effect volume, so you can actually mix between the different effects, or the drift control, which is particularly relevant to movement and diffusion. There's sensitivity on the character, but who cares about that? We don't care about sensitivity. We're not worried about that. We're just going to bulldoze our way through. But in terms of drift, these can be really interesting. They're interesting in terms of stereo, but they're also interesting in terms of what is happening to the sound overall. So as I increase that round, stuff just goes on. More of the stuff, more of the weird stuff, more of the slight unsettling movement and shifting beneath our feet. Now it indicates down here how much of that you've kind of put on, so you can always find your way back, because sometimes obviously with menus and with levels you're not always seeing what that means. If I put that up to the maximum and press those two to come out of it, how do I know there's actually some on? Oh, did you see that? Did you see that? See, it flashes to let you know that you've put on some of the secondary stuff, and that's good. I like that. I really like that. The design of that, it gives me hope that multiple levels are not something with this device that I'm going to get lost in. So I know that I can hit those two again and put that down to nothing, and it's no longer going to show me that anything like that is going on. And that's great. So let's try that on, say, vibrato. See, can you hear that? That's really nice. Just gorgeous. Phaser. Yeah, it just kind of cracks it up a little bit. Tremolo. Again, yeah, breaks it a bit. The pitch. Really makes it rubbish. And we're going to discover more of this drift as we now move into diffusion. Now, diffusion is delays and reverbs. Now, I get frustrated when those two things are put together, because although they do share stuff and things, that's fine. So I'd like a delay and a reverb. And what we will find, and what you'll see as we start combining effects, is that you can only actually use one effect from each of the four effects, each of the four sections, each of the four vibes. You can only use one at a time. So while this has a fabulous space reverb, it also has some fabulous delays. I would like to use the delays and the reverbs, please. If that was an alternative firmware, that would be nice. But hey, let's not dwell on that. Let's just get stuck into what they are. So first of all, you've got, let's get round to Cascade. It's a delay. It's a nice delay. I mean, the time-based stuff is also relevant to the internal tempo of the device, which you can affect by using the tap tempo here. Now, of course, we do get this problem with multiple levels on knobs, being that the knob is no longer pointing to the thing it was originally pointing to. So when I go to here, I move that, it's now pointing over there or over here, which is not necessarily where it was on the time thing. How do you cope with that? I don't know, I think you just cope with it. Right, reels is a similar delay, but it's a tape style delay. So nice. Again, it's going to drift. I mean, there's a whole universe in there. There's a whole place where you can just spend some time enjoying the cosmos and the interpological interpolation of the extraordinary ways that those things and then move and then they underpin and then they dilate and then they come back and then they expand and they contract. You know, like you do with most delays. Anyway, we must keep going. I get distracted if I'm not careful. So, I'm just going to put that back to normal. This is the reverb space. And it's nice. And you can give it its own slight drift through time, drift through places. Then we have collage. Now collage is a kind of a delay in that it, well, I don't know, this is more of a microcosm kind of effect. It grabs a bunch of stuff and runs off with it, and then brings it back and goes, here you go. And then it runs off with it again, and then it brings it back. So it feels like it should be a delay, but it's a delay that comes back and then kind of just slaps you about a little bit and then runs off again. Fun and unexpected is what it is. And then if you stick in its secondary, yeah, that's nice. Not only does it run off with it, it then sticks it through a bit of tape really quickly and brings it back. It's a bit nuts. I love it. Absolutely love it. Totally love that. Alright, calm down. Calm down. And then we have reverse, which does kind of what you expect. Nice, just lovely, and stick some drift into that as well. You can also stick the amount all the way up, so all you're getting is the reverse. just joyful, lovely, fantastic. Right, so the last bit is texture. Now this is what you kind of stick on the end as like the overall destruction or deterioration of the sound. Let's go through, start at the beginning. Filter, actually, this one is slightly strange in that, why is this here? Who knows, but it just gives you a straightforward sort of high pass and low pass filter. Kind of a tilt filter, I guess. Is that fun? I don't know. I guess kind of it is. Anyway, next one is squash. This is a serious bit of compression, like going through old consoles and stuff. Now all you've got is an amount knob. There's more of it or there's less of it. So without it, yeah, you can hear with the high resonance on the filter that sound kind of dropping away. As you bring the squash in, fattens it all back up again. Yeah? That would work really well with a bit of drive, I should think. Anyway, let's not start mixing our effects too early. So that's squash. Next one is cassette. This is probably my favourite. So the idea of cassette is that it's like running your sound through a Porter Studio. That kind of thing. So it sounds a bit, you get a bit of wow and flutter, you get a little bit of that slowing down, speeding up, that juiciness of magnetic tape that's starting to degrade. And it just gets worse the further you turn it. That's just so great. Let's bring the organ in, the algo. And it gives it a circus feel. It feels like you're at you're at a Wurlitzer concert. Oh, it's so good. I mean, you know, use a little of it. Just use a little of it just to introduce that sense of deterioration, that sense of being dragged back through something. It makes everything sound old. Now from there's two more, both of which kind of push it then over the edge. This is kind of like the sweet spot, I think. You're kind of finding an edge that is still hanging in there. Everything is still coherent, everything is still feeling very glued and very together while it's kind of pouring out of itself. I mean, stick some reverb on, for heaven's sake. And it's just lovely. So next one is broken. So this is a bit more like the data bender, a little bit more like a digital brokenness, a glitch. A missing of data, that kind of thing. But it still feels very vintage, feels very analog. But I think it has a slightly more intentional feel to it than the cassette one. The cassette one just oozes this gooiness, whereas this one is decided that things are not well. Then finally we have interference, which pushes again into that data bender kind of area, where it introduces all sorts of glitches, all sorts of brokenness, all sorts of bits that are no longer hanging together. It's all just starting to come apart. Needs that reverb, man. There may be a little bit of vibrato. Drive, so we've got everything going now. It's just lovely. It's lovely with it, it's lovely without it. That's the thing. So here, for instance, I've got these three running together without the crappiness at the end, and it's just lovely. It has a clarity to it, but it has a tone which is there's already elements of destruction in there. There's elements of overdrive and saturation. There are elements of drift and movement, particularly, heck, if I start putting a little bit of that in, then it starts to lose it. And then if I introduce the cassette again, oh, it's a lovely thing. All right. So there you go. That's the basic walk through all of the different sounds from a synthesizer perspective. There's obviously a lot more tone and interesting strangeness you can get out of it if you use a guitar or you use a synthesizer or any other sound source, because the sound source is going to be vital to how this thing is reacting to what you're pumping through it. I hope that gave you some kind of idea. Now, we're not done yet. There's other things too that I'd like to show you just in this simple setup. I kind of, at one stage I was thinking, I could do 5 different synths and 6 different guitars and all sorts of different things. I don't think that's as important as spending time with the actual effects in what they do and just seeing how we feel about them. I think that is what I found myself enjoying more than anything. So let's use another really dull 8-step sequence to massage our minds and soothe our souls. And let me show you another couple of aspects. Probably, there's 2 really that I think really important. All know as there 3, could be 4. Anyway, let's start with gesture recordings. You kind of go, and it records that. No, you don't. You turn a knob. It's about knob recording, automation recording. Okay, and that can be interesting. So let me take off that and that and that. Let's go with our reels, because that was quite cool. Thank you over there. Thank you. I agree very much. So I'm just going to give you a slightly different set of notes. So this is just going through reels, and what I will do is do the gesture recording, which is these last 2 buttons here. If I stick those into gesture record time, I think I can move something and then release it, and it would have recorded that movement. So I'm going to push this into feedback and then take it back out again, see if that works. So that should now do it by itself. That completely failed. No, there it is. I just took too long about it. There you go. It's in there. So what I did, you have to do it from the moment that you press the buttons. So I can do that again by going. Now it's going to come in much quicker. And if you want to remove it, all you got to do is move the control. And it'll no longer be using it. Beautiful. Hard to do with your feet though. Just throwing that out there. Really hard to do with your feet. Very much a desktop orientated kind of thing. Oh, so nice. Every time. Right. Okay, so let's carry on. What else is there that's interesting? The other interesting thing for me was the capture. Now, capture means it's essentially a looper. It's a very simple one. There's not a whole lot going on in there, but it just means you can hold this button here and it will capture a bit of audio and then loop that around. It's particularly interesting for synths because you might have an arpeggiator going or a bass line like this and you can record that and then sort of go over the top of itself, and that's quite interesting because you start to lose the sync because you're not going to be able to do it perfectly. Although oddly enough, when I did a demo video on this yesterday, I hit it perfectly and it completely did not do the thing I was expecting it to do. Anyway, so what I mean is I hold this for the loop, let it go, and then I've got the two things running together. Let me demonstrate. There you go, I did it badly, so it's now running against each other. And what's interesting about that is that the loop is not the same length as the loop on the synth, and so they start to go out from each other. And that's fabulous. greatest thing ever. I'm sorry, I'm just having too much fun. You're not supposed to have so much fun when doing review videos. You're supposed to be focused and know what you're doing and be on script. Script! The heck is one of those? So what else? Well, what else indeed? The presets bypass. These are two things which are important, which should be expressed. So I can, through the magic of another couple of these, I can save this as a preset. So this current thing that we've got going here. So I press the two middle buttons. I can then, I think, choose where I want it to go. There's already a preset. There's already a preset. I'm going to put it on preset number 3 on this slot, if I can get it. There. I press those two again, and that should be saved. Good, you say. Good. Right. So what's the deal with presets? Well, to get to presets, you hold the bypass, and I'm now in preset mode, I think. So I can step up, step down through presets, and these are the 3 that I have saved. That's a white one, so there's nothing on that. So that one, and that one. Okay, great. So you can step through presets and change, but you're playing your guitar, you're mid solo, hit to the next preset, and off you go. Right? Not quite. Let me see if I can show you this. So changing presets happens kind of immediately. It kind of auditions the preset for you. But what you're perhaps noticing is that when you move from preset to preset, there's a gap. It has to sort of think about it and load it up. So once I've got the one that I want, I can hold bypass again, and I'm into it. Alright, I want to change that, hang on to that, go to the next preset, it's there, and then I'm into that one. So the preset engine, while being useful because you can store and recall presets, it's not the sort of thing that you really want to be using as you're trying to go for your guitar solo, or even mid-set, because it has this fade in and out business. I mean, probably what it's best for is if you've bypassed it, or you're no longer using this and you want to change to a different effect to then bring in, because that dip is, to me, kind of makes that, no, I'm not gonna be able to swap presets mid thing. Swap between songs, of course, yes. On a bit of downtime, yes. But you'll not be able to use the preset engine to be able to move between different effect configurations that I need to happen in real time, like stomping on and off on different pedals. Doesn't seem to have that vibe. So what do we do about that? Well, there is something which kind of compensates a little bit. And this is also tied up in the fact that you have these 4 effects that you can't turn on and off with your feet. So there's something called dual bypass. And in dual bypass mode, it means you can bypass some of the effects within the preset, which essentially gives you the opportunity to have something running and then add another effect to it, like you would moving from preset to preset. It's not the same, obviously, because in different presets you can have all of the settings completely different. All the dual bypass thing is doing is allowing you to add another effect within the same preset. So, for instance, add a delay, right? Got that? So you got something happening and then you want to add a delay. Now I'm talking about this happening with your feet, because you can quite easily add and remove stuff with your fingers on these little buttons. You can't do that quite so easily with your feet. So this is really a guitar feature. But let me just show you how that works, if I can remember. So currently, when I press the bypass button with my big clobbing feet, I bypass the whole pedal. Yeah, easy, no problem. That's cool. So instead what I can do is just bypass the modules that I want to bypass rather than the whole lot. So you go into Effects Setup, This is also, funny enough, where you can reorder the effects. If you'd like to have your drive after the reverb, or your vibrato after the cassette, or your delay before the you can do that. You can reorder them. I haven't done any of that because I'm fine with how they are. Thank you very much. But in FX setup mode, if I hold bypass, it shows me what modules will be bypassed if I hit the button. They're the ones which are flashing. So I can turn that on, and means that those will no longer be bypassed and only the delay will. I think, if I've got that right. So now I've taken the delay out. Look at that, I remembered it. Got to be able to press it hard enough. So there you go. I mean, that's the lion's share, I think, of what this can do. I mean, I've been using it, as I say, for a couple of months. I found it completely phenomenal in every respect. Brilliant for guitar. I mean, the fact that you can't fiddle with it while it's at your feet, really. I mean, you can lean over, of course, like any guitar pedal. But what I mean is that it has elements to it which definitely lend itself to desktop finger use. So when you're playing guitar, you need things to be simple. And that dual bypass thing where you can just turn a couple of things on and off is pretty epic. And I mean, really all I want it for is a particular effect at a particular time. It's like a chorus, but with so much more going on, with your vibrato, with your phasing perhaps, with those sumptuous delays. I mean, on guitar, they are just brilliant. And just using those couple of modules for a guitar is superb. You can drop those in any day of the week. The fact that you've got these overdrive bits, again, on guitar, are excellent. I mean, I know you're not supposed to just use an effect straight into your door or whatever, but kind of I do. And if you plug your guitar straight in here, stick on drive, it's sweet, it's nice, it's good enough for me. Bit of that, a bit of delay, you're away, guitar in it, no problem, directly into your computer or your recorder or whatever. It has that ability. Once you start sprinkling it with synthesizers, with anything out of this, it's just gorgeous. All the time, every time. Now, could I have this in an effect within my rack? Yeah, possibly. You can find things a bit like this. In fact, just the other day, was it called Wear and Tear? Someone released a cassette-based emulation for Eurorack. Brilliant. Yeah, that's an effect from here. Of course, there are loads of interesting delays and fabulous bits and pieces. There are, of course, vibratos and phasers and other stuff. So yeah, you can build this in Eurorack with individual modules. But what Hologram have done in combining this into a complete unit is they've given you a house of vintage fun right here. That's intertwined, that's using the same workflow with each other so that you can just play in here without having to learn 4 different ways of doing things. It has enough control to let you go, wow, without having too much. I mean, you see, big Sky pedals or whatever, big, impressive guitar pedals that are covered in knobs, and they kind of they do one thing. And I've got to sculpt all these knobs to do this one thing, reverb or delay or something. So many controls. Whereas this gives you an amount, it gives you a time, and it gives you a shift. That's pretty much it. And honestly, that's all I need. You can also modulate. I mean, you can record your gestures, your knob movements, so you can put that sort of modulation in there. There's no CV modulation or anything like that. You can probably do awesome stuff with MIDI, which I haven't looked at all. But then, from where's MIDI? Where am I going to be doing that? I wonder. I guess using it loops into your DAW. Yeah, I mean that can certainly get interesting. But as a self-contained unit, It is so beautiful and so playful and so remarkable. I mean, in some ways it's going to make your music all sound like it's dripping with deteriorated cassette and delays and bits and pieces. But on the other hand, I don't care. It's just going to sound nice all the time. I mean, do you use it for a single instrument within a set? You know, what's it sound like with drums through it? I mean, you can go on forever, and I'm sure there are plenty of videos out there of people who have. But I think I've done enough. I don't want to spend all day giving you different ideas going through it. I think what's important is to inspire your imagination over what sort of things it could do in your situation. Because I have no idea what you're running, but I hope that the sounds that I put through it were ultimately useful. I will do some guitar. I think that will be useful. So I will finish off with a little bit of guitar going through it just to see what you think. I might put a synth through it, shall I? Who knows? So at the end of this, if I can be bothered, I might put a montage of all sorts of bits and pieces going through it just to see what that's like. But ultimately, as far as my feelings about the Chroma Console go, is that it's an absolute winner. I adore it. Just to stress its limitations in that the preset system doesn't really work in terms of moving between things. The ability to bypass individual modules, you can do that to some degree. You have one chance. You can turn off some, turn them back on. Just those ones. So there's no more nuance to that. You can't get to them individually with your feet, although you can with your fingers. You do have to step through them, so changing effects while you're playing is not fabulous. You're better off choosing what you want to use and then use that rather than fiddling between different ones. But hey, if you're playing by yourself, then fill your boots. Absolutely. Just do that. So it has its limitations. There's a lack of control, absolutely. And that for me is a good thing. For other people, not so much. Simple, straightforward, sounds phenomenal, get lost in it for days. The Chroma Console. Hope that was helpful. In the meantime, go make some tunes. Now, I can't play guitar in a way that's going to demonstrate this beautifully, so all I'm going to do is I don't know. Let's turn on the drives, see what that sounds like. So, drive. So that's all the way up on the drive. Sweeten is like this. Then fuzz. Howl. Yeah, that kind of thing. So as a drive unit for your guitar, this is just going straight into this, straight through my modular system, the same as everything else was. So again, I'm using the DPW pedal IO, which is allowing me to bring my guitar through my modular, which is also pretty cool. And then there's swell, which does that kind of thing. obviously it's going to get more interesting once I introduce some other effects. Like the doubler. Vibrato. Let's go for semi-acoustic. What's that about? It does feel like you'd like to use the reverb at the same time. That's my only beef, I think, because the reverb is nice. Now I can put this on the floor. I could then do the thing, but my cables are not quite long enough at the moment. So let me try to see if I can fudge it by leaning on it. Not quite, I think. Not quite. Let's put my. Maybe what I can do. I don't know. Let's put my foot up here. Ready? Okay, we go. Yeah, nice loop. Now I believe there's a way of doing that. Post effects rather than before effects. Something like that. Put my foot up on it again. Here we go. a bit of guitar through the Chroma console.